Mr. Chris.
Hello. Hello, sir.
It's all here. Well, as much as we're going to get. Dawntrail stuff is here.
Dawntrail is here. They've given us a little bit, more than I expected.
Yeah.
And that's always a little bit sus to me. I don't know how you feel about it.
It's sus because we don't have a villain.
Yes, good point. Because all we've got is like the old leader, right?
Yeah.
Which is a total bait.
And as it stands right now, we haven't had the very, very last part of Endwalker, which is going to lead into Dawntrail. So it's not like a Realm Reborn, where we finish on the cliffhanger and they go into Heaven's Ward. You know, they enter the city, and after that, we always kind of knew who the villain was. You know, it was keeping the story
pretty telegraphed.
It was pretty telegraphed, and the expansions were like the same story continuing, but in a different environment.
Yes,
is generally where it's like, okay, we go to the Stormblood environments, and now we're going over to the Shadowbringers environments.
Yeah,
but the story is still the Zodolin, the Zodiac Hydaelyn arc is going on. This time, not so much, all fresh, and they completely wrapped up the Golbez Zero storyline and went, and you go over there now.
For now. I mean, I'm standing by that's coming back with a vengeance. Not now, probably.
Oh, for sure. They're coming back, but for now, they're like, you're not the focus of what we're doing next.
Correct, yeah.
But when you turn up later, I guess we should talk about that a little bit. Like, very briefly, we've got a video coming, which is like a final review of Endwalker.
Yes.
But I liked what they did with Zero and Golbez. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't.
Correct, yeah.
They kept calling it filler content. But for me, I don't know how you felt. It was like, okay, we need to establish these characters.
Yes.
Because they're going to take part in the future.
Yeah.
And what we don't want is when they show up, is like, and now here's the backstory of Zero. Because you can imagine midway through the next story, we would have had to go do all the stuff with them.
That would be pretty rough if you had to do that.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty obvious that's the case, because there is already clear precedent in the game for that, and I think people often forget, is this is exactly what happened with the Warriors of Darkness.
Yes.
Exactly the same. They came in one patch in Heaven's Ward, wrapped up, and then vanished for an expansion and a half.
Yeah, and this was when they were planning for the future at that point.
Exactly, right? So, and even back then, I'm told, I mean, we weren't playing back then, but everything I've heard from other players who were said the response was basically the same, is that people were mad that it was filler content at that time. And it's kind of interesting how the memories you forget pretty quick, I suppose, in hindsight.
Yeah, oh, you're new, and so you experienced that storyline as like, this is really weird.
Exactly like we did, of course.
Exactly.
It's like we just had it as is, and then we went straight in. But I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I think they're really setting up for, I believe, the inevitable merging or the balancing of the 1st and the 13th.
It's been teased for so long, and they keep coming up with more and more ways of... It's almost ridiculous at this point. That how many different ways there are of transferring energy, messages, people. You can go inside the little blood amulet and you can move around between all these places, and the merging is going on. It's like, well, ether is essentially energy.
Yeah.
And if we could move the ether from here to here, and backwards and forwards, like, we can probably do something there to... And we've got one world that's like blasted with light, one world that is blasted with darkness.
And we've had the Oracle of Light and Oracle of Darkness stories. It's, I mean, that's the clear example in my mind. And obviously we did it as part of the patch. We sent light ether.
Yep.
Now, their case during that patch is that it only works one way, because...
Everything's got such a stupid caveat to it.
It's like, oh, it only goes this way because the void is stasis. And, you know... It only can go that way. It's like high concentration to low concentration stuff. But something tells me Stolar's going to figure something out.
Yeah, all right. So
that's the usual play.
Before we got the Dawntrail stuff then,
yeah,
what did you think Dawntrail was going to be about? Like, we were calling it Dawntrail, but I guess before we even knew the name of Dawntrail.
From which point? Like, before we'd seen any trailers?
It has to be before the resolution of the Zero Golbez arc.
I mean, my expectation initially, let's say 6.2 when we first met Zero, was that's probably what it was going to be. And then, of course, we saw the first trailer, and I was like, oh. And we started to see that the patch story was coming to a resolution pretty quickly. I was like, okay, that's clearly not what they're going for. And then once we saw the first trailer, I was like, there's definitely some bait and switch going on, but they're very clearly going somewhere else. Beyond that, they didn't really give us a lot to go on.
No, you thought they were going to use this opportunity to age Alfie up. That was one of your big predictions.
It was, because I was so sus of why they weren't showing him in the trailer. And it makes sense, because they're still not aged up. And like they're kind of stuck with this time bubble thing. Except, strangely, the Warrior of Light. I saw a great tweet about it, where they showed the age progression of the Warrior of Light.
Yep.
And it's perfect. It's like exactly in time with how long the game's been out, where he's like, in 1.0, he's super like 18-year-old, fresh face, and now he's like gruff 30s.
Mm-hmm.
It made complete sense. And it'd be funny if like literally any other character in the game had aged as well.
But I don't think Lala's look kind of the same forever.
I guess, yeah, get a little bit of facial hair.
Your Solar is always kind of older looking.
I guess. I mean, she's meant to be like, what? I mean, apparently, like, she's only 31 or something.
Oh dear. Well, she's been through a lot.
She has.
Let's put it that way. I mean, I know she's got the smooth pixel face, but she definitely has a weathered way about her.
I guess,
she does. She's got the weathered voice. She's seasoned.
But, I mean, Thancred apparently is, like, only in his, like, early 30s as well.
Yeah, I always placed Thancred about 40-something.
Like, certainly late 30s at least.
Yeah, because he's got that Harrison Ford vibe to him. That kind
at least now, anyway.
Yeah.
Like, maybe it's A Realm Reborn. He's a bit of a fuckboy. Fair enough.
Yeah.
But, yeah, the age has always been a bit suspicious. And I was like, I think very quickly they must have realised that they can't keep this up forever. It was my feeling. And they're not showing Alphino. And we know that Elezen hit maturity at around age 18, 19, 20. Which they must be, logically, at that point. So that's kind of what I was going for. I was like, look, give him a little bit of bum fluff. You know, maybe he's a little bit taller. And actually, I'm going to say, this may be complete copium, I think they actually might be a bit taller.
God, you're going to be doing some comparisons now.
Look, I mean, all I'm going to say is I looked at the trailer, and I went through frame by frame. The third shot that we got of Alize, you know, with the butt shot,
yeah,
her height definitely seems to be more in line with, like, a female here that was there. That was, I mean, it could well be perspective, but that was what I saw. And the final shot we get of Alfie, when you see the boat turn around, and maybe Bex can pull this up, is you see the boat come around, and you can see Alfie is there, and what's his name? The bunny boy?
I don't know, it's Zeppler. No one freaking... No one but the girls care about that guy at all.
All I know is John calls him a village. I forget.
I don't know. But...
whatever his name is, like the bunny boy. They looked... So, initially, the bunny boy was on a lower step, but on the final shot, he's up on the full step.
Mm-hmm.
And when it turns, they look about the same height.
See, I didn't get that at all.
It's very small because it's far away.
You kept telling me, he's like, they're going to age Alfie up. They're going to age you up. They're going to give him a little beard.
Yeah.
Or something like that. They came on, I was like, nope. He still looks exactly the same to me.
I mean, he does. He's still very young looking. They have not given him any facial hair. They're not giving him like a full-on mustache. But they could do something subtle. Just, you know.
Oh, I think it's right. I think they should age up with the Kaisers. I think if your... Because you've been through a lot with your character as well. It's only fair. Otherwise, it does create this weird bubble.
It does.
Whereas, weird. They should be... I don't want them to be kids anymore, especially because Alfie now is... We'll get to this in, like, Dawntrail predictions, I guess. Alfie has now, like, led people multiple times. Not always successfully.
No.
But he's also, you know, been working out in the snow-ridden fields of Garlemald for a long time, dealing with horrors. He's travelled to all... These people, even if they were young, they would look older anyway.
Yeah, and also, like, if you just account for the level of emotional and mental maturity they've gone through, it seems so weird. Like, what you're telling me, this all happened over a year period, or whatever they're saying it is. It's like a year or a year and a half. It's like, I just don't buy that at a certain point.
And it doesn't feel that way to the players either.
No, it doesn't. Like, even if you started more recently, which of course we did, even with that, it doesn't feel right. Yeah. Let alone for the people who've been playing since, A Realm Reborn. So I was very much kind of along that line, but it turns out they were only hiding him so they could hide the Fem Hrothgar.
Yes.
That's the only reason they were doing it. So, I don't know. I mean, we'll see what happens when the patch comes. Whether they've just kind of stretched his model up a bit, but if not, I think they need to get on that. Like, another expansion, but if they don't start aging them up, I mean, it's just going to be weird.
I wonder if it's something to do with merch. But you'd think having a slightly different model would give different merch. Better, fresher.
Yeah.
You know, stuff like that. I mean, he's on every poster. It's, you know, you get it. We talk about it a lot. It's like, why haven't they killed certain characters? And it's like, well, Y'shtola is on every single image of Final Fantasy XIV.
We understand that. Yeah,
I get it.
We totally
she's
get
the face of it, despite the fact that, you know, we watch the cosplay competitions. Very few people do Yish. I love Yish, or used to. Not a big fan of it these days. But it's like, do we want to keep these the same because they're iconic and stuff? And is it almost, and here's another twist, if they have different images of Alphino and Alizé in merch, posters, advertisements, is that considered spoilers for people who haven't played it yet?
It's a good... I mean, they definitely had that problem with Graha during Shadowbringers, because it would show up on the store.
Yeah.
As like Crystal Exarch, and it's clearly Graha. So I get that. I don't know, it's a difficult problem. I think there's probably a resource side of it, is because they have to make a new model and stuff like that. I understand that's kind of work and stuff. But I think...
For immersion factor.
The longer it goes on, the less excuse there is.
Okay, well, we'll see. We'll wait and see on that. So you're still holding
my
hope.
copium. My little copium is that, okay, they're clearly not significantly changed, but maybe they'll put them on like a normal model base.
Yeah.
So less than... They're currently on like a different one, like a different model. It's not any of the racial models. So maybe they've put them on a normal racial model, like a Hura or like an Aura or Mikote model, you know, standard sized.
Yeah, that'd be nice to see.
I don't know.
Let's move on to the trailer then. So we got the trailer. Was not a huge fan of it. I was not. It was broken into 3 pieces.
Yeah.
The first 2, I enjoyed it. It's more FF14. It's great. It's an expansion, but nothing's happening. And then nothing's really happening. It's all very pretty and beautiful, and we got a lot of jungles, which doesn't excite me at all. We've played through 1 billion jungles in different MMOs, different games. Jungles are not like, look, it was always hard when Yoshi P, even when we were in person in London. It's like, look at the foliage. I'm like, yeah, the bitrate's going to suck, Yoshi P. Like, I get what you're saying.
It's going to make our stream look like crap.
This is going to look terrible, dude. Like, it's already bad enough in some of the Endwalker zones.
Well, even Shadowbringers, you go to like the fairy place. It's like a nightmare.
It's a nightmare. So I'm looking at it going, yeah, that's cool and stuff. I've seen all this before. No conflict.
No.
Everybody's having a good time. We got Graha with his big fat tacos. You know, we got all the memes. We're in there. All good fun. The teasers of potential. Of course, we have people bargaining on Corsair and, Green Mage and all that. And we obviously got Pictomancer and Viper. And then we got the third one. And that's what blew me away. Yeah. Because finally we had something different. We got the Neon City, which you don't have a name for. It's Esther, by the way. Is what we got. Totally space age. Looks like it's raised out of the floor. Yeah. On a big plinth. So it's got that Final Fantasy VII vibe to it, of the city above the city. Yeah. That's like the advanced city they're coming in. They're keeping it under hat now as to what it is, which led to a ton of predictions.
Oh yeah, I mean that's really been the main thing. People are like
people are finally interested, and I don't think I was the only one, because I've never been shy about my opinions. I sit on stream, I was like, until this trailer, I was like, because it's not like the Shadowbringers one, where that monolithic angel rises above you and you're like, oh god.
Yeah, there is so much there. It's like, yeah, I mean, the class stuff is cool, and I imagine we'll talk about Pictomancer in a bit. But there was nothing special about it, and I would compare it to, say, it wasn't the Shadowbringers or Endwalker trailer, where it's like there's this intense emotion, and you're like, what the hell is going on? Because you get like the Master Matoya stuff, and you're like, I don't know what's going on. It's all very nice. It's kind of like the A Realm Reborn trailer, or perhaps the Stormblood trailer, where it's like, you're just mainly getting the setting. Yep. But now we're starting to see a little bit more with Solution 9, I believe is what they called it. That's where I think people are starting to cook, because clearly things aren't all hunky-dory.
But yeah, because before we get... I want to do my predictions for what's going to happen in the MSQ and see how wildly wrong we are.
Okay,
yeah. We know... So they did the first couple of trailers, which were all jungle and nice, and everybody's having a good time and dancing around, and there's little rat creatures running all over the place, because of course there is. Yeah. And then they went, and then Yoshi's like, and there will be political intrigue. And I was like, this is either the Phantom Menace or it's BFA. Which is to say, they've got the Troll Princess and all this is happening in Battle for Azeroth and World of Warcraft. And I'm like, oh god, This is terrible. And then there's political intrigue. But then he said something that was really interesting, which is the Scions will be divided.
Yeah.
And that was like, yes, I am fully on board with that idea.
I mean, the implication of how they described it, I think, at our Fanfest, was they said it was basically the Scions are going against each other to decide who gets to rule Tuliolal, right? That's
lol from this point on.
I mean, I can pronounce it. It's not that hard.
Good for you.
I would be surprised if it goes much deeper than that, if I'm honest. Because just of how Square works, I think it's all a bit of bait.
Nearly everything is bait here, but I have a different take on it.
Okay.
That I think they're going to do.
All right, lay it on me.
Alright, this is my big prediction for what I think they're going to do. At least in the first few patches.
Right.
I think we will see clearly 2 teams of Scions formed.
Okay.
That'll happen. And I think we're going to have the logical on one side.
Right.
Which will be Urianger,
Mm-hmm.
Y'shtola, Alphino.
Right.
Right. On that side. And on the opposite side, we will have the more emotional on this side, which will be kind of led by Alizé.
That makes sense.
Yeah. We'll have the Graha will probably be over there. Kryl will probably be over on that side of the team as well. Thancred probably leans more towards emotion, because we've had the weird dichotomy of Urianger and Thancred. The very logical versus the more emotional.
And same with Y'shtola, like Thancred and Y'shtola have had
exactly.
their issues too.
So I think this will hard separate them. And I think we're going to see that happen too. And I hope that they typically do. This is why I didn't worry about the Zero Golbez storyline. I have no reason to mistrust their storytelling ability.
No, I have complete faith as it stands.
Exactly. Until they shake that foundation, it's rock solid. Yeah. So I would like to see that, because I think we will have 2... Because I think they want also the audience, or I'm hoping, to invest in either one of these potential leaders.
Are you thinking they'll actually let you choose?
I don't know if they'll go that far.
Because that would be a, like... It's not even only just a narrative shake-up, but a technical shake-up.
Only if it actually results in some sort of change. You never know if someone's behind the scenes, like an Asian, or something is happening behind the scenes that's like, oh, our choice, we let you make the choice. It's the illusion of choice, which makes sense in MMOs.
True.
In MMOs, it totally makes sense. You can't have 2 completely divided storylines in an MMO universe.
Well, I mean, you can. I mean, they've done that in WoW. BFAs were, like, different. You leveled each side.
You leveled each side, but they always came together.
For the main story points.
Yeah. They always come together. You can't have somebody who's in a narrative... For example, you can't have somebody in a narrative where, let's be ridiculous, Thancred's dead in my story.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You can't do that.
No.
Or that the world is ruled by Vashan or whatever. But over here, it's actually someone, it's Yules from Garlemald. He's in charge, and it's all Garlemald.
Although that would be cool.
That would be very cool, but like technical limitations and resources aside, it's like they generally can't do that.
Yeah.
And plus, we've had with the World of Warcraft developers in the past, it's like we kind of need everybody to play together.
Yes.
But ultimately, it's an MMO. We do need people to play together. But I think they want the audience, ideally, I would like to see this, choosing a side and siding with their science. Maybe you side based on your science, or maybe you're... If they're prepared to go that far, is like, I agree that X should be leader, but my favourite Scion is on the other team.
Right.
That creates that kind of emotional impact that Final Fantasy XIV is known for, but it's more in the player base. Because I think, and this is where I'm ultimately going with this, Zero is the one who's going to bring them back together. Because Zero just learned actions and the kindness of the team and the units and all the actions that the Scions have done have given them... You remember, so much of Zero's storyline is focused on meeting people whose lives have been influenced by the Scions in some way, particularly the Warrior of Light.
Yeah.
But all of them, and she sees how people respond to them, and Zero's return is not one of combat, although she'll probably dive in with Scythe out and fucking start chopping people. But ultimately, Zero is going to be the one who's had this change in and of herself that they taught her. They taught her what it meant to care for other people.
Yeah, for sure.
And the response you get and how it brings everybody together. And then she can come in later on and reunite the Scions. And maybe what we'll actually see is both leaders working together.
Interesting.
Something like that.
Okay. I mean, so my feeling is I don't think we'll see Zero at all for this expansion. I suspect she'll come in probably the expansion afterwards, maybe even the one after that, or like a patch story. I suspect... I do like your idea, but I suspect that's probably not how it will be. I think it will be the A story. We'll start with that. I think they could have some choices in there, but I think it will be fairly shallow. And I suspect very quickly things will go awry. and that's what will lead us into the B story, which will be going in towards Solution 9.
Mm-hmm.
And so I suppose most of my predictions are more on that side, so I don't know if you want to move on to that.
I don't know. Going back to that, this is the problem I have with that story that I told, is I would love that to happen, but do you think creating that kind of conflict in the community is why they wouldn't do stories like that?
Yeah, genuinely I would. Mm-hmm. I mean, so the example you gave where you think people would be invested in, like, I want to choose this option, but my favourite Scion is over here, I suspect Square Enix would actually think that's not desirable for that exact reason. And that maybe they wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah, it's shame, right? Even if you know it resolves itself, shortly. Do you know what I mean? Because it reminds me of that quest that people didn't like, where you get transported into like a weak body and you have to get back because one of the Scions is going to die.
Which blows my mind that people don't like that quest.
People hate it, yeah? So I am always on that side of like, there are things I am totally fine with that conflict because I would be so invested. But I can absolutely see the point of like, yeah, but we can't do that because people would be genuinely upset. And I'm like, right. But we know it's going to work out, right? We know it's going to be fine, but I do know that some of the more over-the-top fans, I guess, would be like, why did you make me pick?
That is definitely my feeling. Because we've seen that, and that quest is a good example, because I think for people like us, we see a quest like that, and it's like the best quest we've ever played in the game. And to find out how many people hated it is really surprising, when it's kind of one of the first quests that actually did something novel and different. Novel, different, tense, intense.
Very intense. I mean, like, the sense of urgency while dealing with it and getting back and like, holy God, am I responsible for the death of one of my favourite Scions? Like, all the emotions that run through your head while you're doing that quest is so good.
And honestly, I kind of wish they'd followed through and had us, like, maybe not kill someone, but almost kill someone. I kind of wish they would have done that.
Same. Like, I'm down for the intensity, but I totally get it. Like, in my mind, that's how I would write the stories. Exactly. Like, I want you to have this conflict.
Yeah, make it like really intense, because that's cool.
We're not going to have a Zodiac. It's too soon for that. Like, you know what I mean? We're not just going to have a Zodiac coming out. If you remember Realm Reborn, the enemies are like Lolorito.
Yeah.
Right? It's the government.
Yeah.
It's
politics.
It's politics. Those are your enemies in a Realm Reborn. It wasn't Dalamud or anything like that. It was the political atmosphere of the time, especially in Uldar, that led to, betrayal, killing the queen, and cutting off Raban's arm, this army turning against its, usurping and rebelling. Yep. That was your villain. And we're going back to that period of time where there isn't a universal death-killing entity.
Yeah.
It takes years to get to that stage. Otherwise, you end up like the DC universe, where suddenly it's like, and now I met Batman, and now here comes Darkseid. Wait a minute, this all happened in like 5 minutes.
You do have to build up, right?
Yeah, they've got to build up. So that makes sense for the political side. So it's like, well, where's your conflicts? And someone did point out in our Twitch chat, where it's always like, does it need conflict? I'm like, 100%. You can't have a happy-go-lucky video game.
Conflict is the axis through which you experience plot development, right? In some form. It doesn't have to necessarily be fighting.
Nope.
But you need conflict of some kind, even if it's political, even if it's, cloak and dagger. It can be whatever you want, but there will be something. My suspicion is that it won't be between the Scions in the long term. I think that will end, I don't know, let's say level 93.
Oh, so you're thinking like it'll start with this, but then we find out more information and they come together very quickly. We'll have the the triumphant music will play.
Well, we know that it's going to start that way, right? We've had that confirmed, right? There's going to be Scion conflict, and we know it's going to start in Tuliyola. And we know that in some fashion, Solution 9 is going to play a role. And that's what they were comfortable showing us, which I think is key here. Like, think about Endwalker. They're not going to show us Ultima Thule.
No.
They're not going to show us Elpis. Why were they okay showing us Solution 9?
An empty Solution 9. Like,
that's true.
A quick question. Yeah. When we get there, I think that place is populated like a motherfucker.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like, they showed us an empty city with street signs and roads and things like that. And I'm like, this place is going to be brimming with life.
And I don't think that's the only zone, though. I think it's going to get even bigger than that, because that's the only excuse that they would have to show us Solution 9, is if there was something more to keep hidden.
Well, we've got the treasure maps which go into the stars. Like, the universe, the galaxy itself is not off limits now.
No, and we have... I mean, how many more shards do we have? Which I suppose we'll get into my predictions in a bit, but there is so much unexplored territory at this point. That's where I think it's going to go. I think the whole New World element is a very small piece of that puzzle, and I think everything else is going to go far beyond that. For sure.
Yeah, it was interesting to see that they're quite openly saying, like, you can visit all these places that kind of Meteion... Well, they didn't confirm that, but it feels like the places Meteion devastated.
Yeah, so one of the interesting theories I was reading was that basically when everything died, when Meteion visited everywhere, all of the souls that would normally return to a given ethereal sea were what was contained in that big blue bubble, right? So now that those have gone, so now that Meteion's dead and whatever...
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
exactly. I don't know if it's on
camera. So all of those have, in principle, can be returned to their given star and can be reincarnated through the normal cycle, assuming it works the same as it does on the source.
Yeah, I wonder if you get magnetised. Do you when you come out, do you go back home?
Well,
I don't know. Do you like a homing pigeon as a soul?
I mean, maybe we're just like taking them over in sacks or whatever and just dumping the souls in. Like,
all right, got a sack of souls.
Got a delivery for
fresh
you.
Fresh out of a pair of blue balls I found over here. Yeah. A little sack of souls.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see about that one. I don't know. It's interesting. I think so. My predictions mostly centre around Solution 9, I would say, and I suppose that's kind of where the theories get in. So it looks very much like Esthar. That's the vibe.
Fingers crossed, because Esthar's from Final Fantasy VIII, by the way.
Yeah. Now I've not played it myself, but obviously I was there during the stream.
You've witnessed.
I've witnessed. So as I remember, it was a city that was hidden. It was cloaked.
Yep.
So that would certainly explain why the technology is hidden, like Wakanda, I suppose would be the example. So it's possible that city is just on the source. And that it's an isolated civilization who are just apparently very technically advanced, because it's nothing like anything else on Eorzea. Or
it's not Allagan.
And it's nothing like the Allagan tech either.
Nope.
So either it's a separate civilization that has in some manner remained hidden for thousands of years in isolation, and Esthar would certainly make sense for that.
And I would suggest that they look down upon us as pawns.
Complete pause, yeah. Or the alternative, and this is what my hope is, that it's actually something to do with another reflection. And this is where I would lean more into Solution 9. So Solution 9 is a reference to FF9, which is a limit break, as I recall. So what if it's not Esthar, or maybe it's like a mix, but it's actually leaning into a shard based on FF9.
It could be, because the city that Sin attacks, I forget, Zanakland? I'm going to get the names wrong, because they're always...
What, FF10? Zanakand. Yeah.
No, in 9...
Isn't 9...
9 is with Vivi and Zidane.
Yeah.
And co. I don't picture a city that's like that in that one.
I mean, it could always be a merge of, like... No. I mean, they don't have to stick to it, right? It could well be that they're incorporating elements of both 8 and 9, and there's nothing that stops them from doing that.
Yep. I mean, they've done that in the past. They sometimes pull from, 12 and just throw Franny and Co in and do all those kind of things. It's the style of the city that caught my eye.
Yeah.
Because Esthar doesn't look like that.
No.
In 8. It's not neon. It's not got that cyberpunky vibe to it, but it is a hyper-advanced... type city. It's the one that has floating cars, which is obviously great for the game and doing all that kind of stuff. And it has everything you could picture a modern Esthar looking like that.
Yeah.
If the technology was there back then.
Yeah, if they'd, played Cyberpunk and stuff like that. They had that design language in mind, I guess.
If they weren't so Star Trek influenced. Because you remember when FF8 came out, the future vision in nearly everything, Star Wars and all good science fiction, or popular science fiction should be more reflective of that, was clean, beige, white, very stylized, minimalist,
post-scarcity, all of that stuff.
Post-scarcity, and now our idea of futuristic, ironically, is kind of based on the 80s. For some reason, thanks to things like Cyberpunk and, a lot of the other genres.
Blade Runner and all that stuff.
A lot of the genres that have come out, especially in the indie game space.
Yeah.
the idea of the future now is very neon and pink and
but also grungy
dark, because that's more interesting. Like a plain white corridor, not that interesting for a gaming place, although it looks cool in FF8. And then of course there's Borg cubes.
Yes.
You know me, and I love my Borg. So I'm like, please be S-Star.
And RTX cubes.
Oh,
RTX
please give me that. I don't want the characters. I do not want the FF8 characters at all. They can stay.
I mean, we've already had Vivi, right? So that's kind of already done. Well, Gigi, whatever his name was.
Yeah.
From Hildebrand. I mean, it'd be funny if like there's a danger shows up.
I'm just thinking of the nightmare that is the horrors of all FF8 characters that can't speak to anybody without crying.
I mean, people like them.
Whatever. Like, I don't need that. But it also, I mean, if they are mixing some FF9 in there, it'd be really interesting to see whether they go the whole hog with it.
Well, they've shown that they're willing to do it, and I think the example would be the patches that we've just done. Because it's very clear that the 13th is based very heavily on FF4.
Yep.
So they've shown that they're kind of willing to go all in. Like, classically, up to this point, it's usually been little things spread around. So it'd be things like, okay, Raid series, Ivalice.
Yeah, or Omega's a great example, where it's like, okay, here's the Phantom Train. Yeah. Here's Kefka.
You know, like reference things, or names, right? It's like, I mean, Vinar, which we found out, obviously, once we played FF12, it's like, oh, that's where it comes from.
Yeah, that was creepy.
Yeah.
That was really creepy to be like, go back and like, oh, and here's Emmett Selk. You're like, oh no.
Oh, dear.
Here's Hermes. Oh.
So stuff like that you sort of expect. But having an entire shard based on that, you're like, The fact they're willing to do that is a little more interesting.
Yeah, I mean, what they've showed us is such a tease. And you can tell when he does Yoshi smirk.
Yeah, he's like...
And it's like, you don't know anything. Like,
nope,
and you're right.
No idea.
You're absolutely right. I never even really thought of it that way. It's like, this is the stuff we're showing you.
Yeah.
What are we not showing you? And I'm like, yeah, that's really cool. Another shard would be... It'd be interesting to see, because you can go anywhere, like the Fallout shelters.
Yes.
You can really do it in any different way you want. It's like, well, this is a civilization that, like, everything was good, and they prospered, and they were incredibly advanced. Because they just worked together and worked forward. It could be something to do with a simulation being run by those robots, you know?
Yeah.
That could be absolutely things like, this is a simulator. This is where we came from originally. Something like that. Because we've done, I forget the name of the dungeon now, where you travel to all the different shards that are at war. Like Meteons. All the different worlds of Meteon. And you go to advanced places, and then you go to somewhere else. You know, it's like this was Paradise, or whatever it was, but Paradise made them bored. To all those kind of aspects. And now the galaxy is wide open. I don't know. I know what I want from it is I want a cyberpunky world. Yeah. Like, that would be dope. Like I said, jungles and stuff really disinterested me in terms of setting.
Yeah, I mean, we've had too much of that, right? And the good thing about Final Fantasy, one of its strengths as a franchise is the ability to do anything. You have a massive variation of, like, you can have medieval fantasy and magic to full-on sci-fi. You can have that in the same universe, which is not something you can often do, I think. And I think the question for me when it comes to the other shards is, are they going to go new directions, or are they going to try and lean pretty heavily into old FF games?
I think they owe it to lean on the older FF games a bit, because as the MMO, they're in a unique space, right? It's not like... I was trying to think, actually, if you draw any inspiration from 16, because obviously Yoshi P would have been well aware of 16's development at the same time of producing Dawntrail, although typically to MMO design standards we've looked at is they started a good couple of years early, but so did 16, so they knew the setting and whatever, but there's nothing super advanced in 16.
No, it's a very... I mean, we know we've got the crossover coming. Whether they go even more heavily into that, I don't know. I suspect they're probably more inclined to lean to the older games.
I think so too. Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I do think they kind of owe it to the players. It's no different than World of Warcraft or whatever. It's like... Yeah. People wanted Northrend.
Yes.
That's what they wanted. They wanted Northrend. They wanted to know when Illidan was going to show up and stuff like that. Like, this is part of that universe that I remember. This is the universe I love. And with the Final Fantasy, it's like, okay, let's pull this from 12, let's pull this from 8, let's pull this from 7.
I'm actually amazed we've not seen anything from 7, really.
It's weird, right? So that's what I thought, is like when we saw that the Solution 9 is on top of a pedestal.
And it has a Midgar vibe, for sure.
It has a Midgar vibe to it. And I'm like looking at it going, now we're also doing the FF7 remakes are coming faster. at this point, because we're getting Rebirth or whatever it's called in the next month or so, is like, maybe we do need some FF7 in there. It's beloved, you know, it's the...
It could be they're intentionally holding off because the games are actively in development.
Could be.
They maybe want to wait and see what happens, or wait for the story to finish, so it's like not quite so fresh, or potentially contesting the vibe with an active game, sort of thing. Maybe.
I had another thought.
Okay.
And I have nothing to base this on, but it is a thought. It's a thought after doing this for 20 years.
Yeah.
And analysing games for 10 plus years in this world and speaking to developers and stuff.
Yeah.
As to whether Solution 9 was shown at the Japanese Fanfest, because the overall reception to Dawntrail had not been amazing yet.
That is very possible. They could have said, we need to show something.
We need to show something. Like, we've done 2 Fanfests now where we really didn't show a lot. We did a lot of stuff on La La Chins. We definitely ticed some people. I mean, I was fine with whatever.
Yeah.
Like the FF11 Alliance raid, totally was in with that.
Yeah, very cool.
The new I forget about how they phrase it, but the new Blue Mage style job was coming. Great.
Or Beastmaster, yeah.
Yeah, we call it Beastmaster, but they call it like non-optimal job.
Limited job.
Limited job, yeah. The new limited job is coming. Great.
It's going to be Pokemon, for sure.
More story. That's all I need to know. Like, you're doing more MSQ? Cool, I'm down.
Well, I mean, we're going to give them a fair amount of rope, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's a very real concern that that's not necessarily a very wide felt.
It's not. I don't think that taps into the millions of players. And people always respond to this, especially if you're listening to a discussion like this, is you're a more invested fan than a lot of people.
Yeah.
Who are the casual fan. Right? I mean, we try and express this a lot is in our history is you bump into people who don't even know new expansions are coming.
Yeah.
Right? They're really unaware of this. They're not looking at YouTube. They're not watching Twitch. They're like, oh, new expansion's coming. Cool. I like that game. I'm going to play it. And if they do watch the trailer for it, for Dawntrail, they're like, huh.
Okay.
Okay.
It's nothing special.
Yeah, especially considering it's no longer a story they're already invested in. That's the difficulty that Square Enix has got right now, is the new story is not something people are invested in. You could get it in Endwalker and Shadowbringers, both of those, less so in Stormblood, but still a factor, is like, I absolutely need to know how the story ends. I will buy whatever you put out there because I need to know how the story ends.
Yeah.
I absolutely need to know.
For sure.
They don't have that now. That's going to be a while till it gets back there.
Yeah, they're in a very... and I know we've actually compared it because of how we felt during Shadowlands, but they are in a very WoW spot where they don't have that to build on.
No.
They have to really come out fresh and really punch it. So yeah, you're very correct. And actually not even just the casual player base, or even players like us, but there's also the players who only play FF.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're also going to struggle because they need a reason to stay invested, and they're kind of approaching where we were with WoW, where I think some of those are getting jaded a little bit.
That was the conversation I had with Zeppler about this, because she is like, Endwalker didn't treat some of those players particularly well.
They didn't have a farm thing and stuff like that.
The formula changed. Yeah. That's what it was. Because it's like, all the content is still there that you used to have, besides the Bosnia type farm environment, which they didn't do.
Yeah.
And they're already like, yeah, it's here, don't worry about it. We're making it. It's fine. We heard you loud and clear. You want that, which is totally fine. But what they did, we didn't get like the trials in its own separate thing. It's like, well, all those fights are there, but they're built into the MSQ now, and then you got the story stuff on the side with Tataru.
Yeah.
But what you didn't get is burn out the bad, all the animals and stuff.
Yeah.
You didn't get that sort of very invested story with bosses that paid off in some way.
Yeah.
Certainly better than the 2B stuff that we got for the Alliance raid. But, like Sky Pirates and things like that, which we got some of back. But it was all divided up differently in Endwalker. It was the same cake, sliced differently, which people didn't like. And they're going to go... It looks like they're returning to the original formula at this point.
I do actually think there is a very reasonable feeling that... I don't know how you feel about this, but I suspect FF16's development did have an effect on that. I think resources probably were stretched a bit.
I would be really sad if that's the case, because if that's the case, you should really think about not taking the project.
I think he would. I like, from everything I've seen from Yoshi P now, he's been talking about Final Fantasy. He's like, I don't think we should do it. Mm-hmm. And he's saying it should go to younger people.
Yeah.
And I do have to wonder if he's like... I mean, it was cool, and FF16's great. I'm not disparaging that. But I do have to wonder if he's like, it's probably best we don't.
Yeah, it'd be... I don't know how to, like, I'm not trying to equate it to us, because we do, obviously, not as projects that are managing, like, thousands of people.
No.
If someone said, well, I've got this project for you. I'll tell you what's an example, actually. Recently, Gladiators started back on UK TV.
Oh, okay,
this weekend. And there's YouTubers in it.
Right.
Who do fitness YouTubers, the Gladiators.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Interesting approach.
So I saw one of the Gladiators is called, like, Storm or Apocalypse or whatever. And I was like, I know who that guy is. Like, that's weird. And it'd be kind of like, sometimes we have been approached with projects.
Yeah. Which
is like, this is going to be maybe 3 months.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, but that's... the Race to World First would probably be a prime example. It's like, the Race to World First is like...
Yeah,
it could be 3 to 4 weeks, especially with some of the extra projects we've talked about outside it. But everything else you're going to do suffers.
Yeah.
Because you can only divide your time so many different ways.
Exactly.
It's not like Yoshi P was slacking.
No, I mean...
Yoshi P is not someone who sat at his desk, like, delegating work all the time.
No, I mean, I'm pretty sure that dude, he probably sleeps like 2 hours a day and he just maintains on cigarettes and coffee outside
Yeah, he does.
So, that's definitely not the problem, I don't think. I think, in the end, even if you expand the size of CBU3, which they must have done for FF16... you can still only go so far, and you're taking people away from certain things to put them on other projects.
Maybe. I don't think Endwalker's bad, though.
I mean, I loved Endwalker.
Yeah, I never felt that way. But I didn't play it day in, day out, because we don't do that anymore.
No.
And there are definitely players out there who do want that from their MMO. And that's fine, because MMOs are kind of designed to be something you can play every day continuously. That's why they charge monthly and etc., is that you should be able to play this game every single day, and maybe didn't get that vibe this time around, but where they had no problems with it in the previous expansions, at least leading up until the next patch. So I assume that formula is going to change back this time.
Yes, I think they've learned. I mean, they're still keeping some things, right? They're keeping the variant dungeons, which they experimented with. They're keeping the Island Expedition vibe of content, because that's what the space stuff is. So it's seemingly we're just going to get more next time, which is great. And I just have to wonder how much of that was down to, like, resources being freed up by FF16 being finished.
Could be, or them, swan-songing out. We know, like, Ishikawa's delegating her work to other writers.
Yeah, I think the primary writer... So I was seeing the primary writer is Oda. He's the guy who made the Whirlit questline. He's the primary writer, I believe, on Dawntrail, which is great. So that's cool.
And we also know he likes the dark things.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, fucking Whirlit. Jesus Christ. I have to wonder what Ishikawa's up to. That's the only question I have.
I know, new projects, new horizons, right? I don't blame any writer for being like, I don't want to write this anymore. I've got other ideas. How many ideas do writers have every day that's like, well, I'm stuck on this project? Like Kojima was saying he was saddled with Metal Gear Solid for so long, and he tried to drop it. I
believe it, yeah.
Yeah, Kojima was like, I wanted to drop out of Metal Gear Solid like 4 games ago. Right? And it just kept coming back. Or they were like, going to Konami the fuck out of it and turn it into slot machines. And with my baby. This is my baby. Like, can't you just get somebody who respects what I've done and will continue the legacy respectfully? And they're like, nope, if you don't work on it.
I could that actually does make complete sense. I think if you're Ishikawa and you finished Endwalker, right? Which I suppose you maybe think like Shadowbringers and Endwalker is like your magnum opus.
Yep.
And you say, look, I've done it. I'm good. I've done everything I want to. Let me do something else.
I will happily guide, and I think this has been quite open. It's like, I'll happily guide in the next generation of writers.
Sure.
I'll be there to bounce ideas off, but there's other things I want to work on. I think that's totally fine. It's no different than a movie writer or an author. It's like, I want to do different things.
Yeah.
And I want to work on different things. And I will help. I'll help. It's totally fine. Your predictions, what do you want? Let's round up. So I give you my prediction of what I think is going to happen.
Yeah.
I think the leaders will be the leader of Solution 9 and probably Troll, having different vibes on what's going to happen.
Right.
Because I actually think we're going to Solution 9 pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I think really quickly we're going to be visiting there. And they're like, well, actually, these people are bad. And the reason we had to move up into the sky was because of these idiots. Right? Because they're barbarians. They're poor and they trash everything. Look down, because it's all destroyed down there, right? It's old wreckage and ruins.
Oh yeah, it's like railways and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. So whether it's like, so we moved up to the skies and we kept ourselves here nice and quiet. Secret, we keep ourselves to ourselves, and now they're encroaching again.
Yeah.
And they're making things difficult for us. And that's not right. Let's go our way. Where the other guys are like, you don't understand, we have super aids. And the cure for super aids is where they are. So we need it. We don't want to encroach on you, but we need it. You know? And so then, again, I'm looking for this logical versus emotional, whereas the logical is like, they have the right to live in peace. You shouldn't be encroaching. On the emotional side, it's like, yeah, but they're going to fucking die. Dude, like, people have a right to live. You know, it's that right to live. It's both, because one thing Final Fantasy XIV does well, and this isn't a meme on WoW, is morally grey.
Yes.
And both sides have a point. It's what makes MXL such a great villain. It's like, I totally get where you're coming from.
Yeah, it's the defining element that makes him so good.
Yeah, sure. Like, I don't agree with how you're doing it, but I totally get why you're doing it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I understand that. I can imagine if I was around when you were around, I would be fully on board with your plan. Like, that makes total sense to me.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to get that again here. But again, in a more political climb, rather than... I think we're both agreed there's no supervillain coming.
Yes.
I don't predict there will be.
Maybe hints of it.
Hints, some darkness, something...
A little tickle, perhaps, but nothing major.
Yeah, nothing world-crushing. They need to bring it down again. We just had somebody who was destroying the universe.
Yeah.
Let's come back. Let's come back a little bit.
Universe-ending threat is like 3 expansions from now.
Yeah. If not more.
If not more. Yeah. But, ease it down for sure.
Really drag it down and bring it back. Any other predictions you want to add?
No, I think that's kind of my main thing for now. I think another shard is going to be involved somehow, and I think that's going to be involved with Solution 9. I think probably the 9th, if I was to make a guess. I haven't checked which ones are still technically okay. I know there's a list. So I think something to do with that. I think it's the only reasonable... Well, one of the only reasonable explanations for why such alien and advanced tech is on the source. So maybe there's like a portal, or maybe it's like a colony from another shard that's set up shop there. I don't know, something like that. But yeah, I think my main thing is that the Tuliolao story is like the A-plot, and it's going to be done by like 83. And it's going to go on to all the other stuff. Like right up to the other side of the continent, where that purpley thing is.
Sure. Okay.
So that's where I stand. I'm sure we'll be completely wrong.
We'll check back in. Thanks for listening, and put your predictions down below.
Yeah.
Because
see 'em.
It's fun, right? Because we're all wrong.
Super wrong.
Or